New Year to all of you, and on behalf of the friends, the cast, the crew over at Mirabel Technologies, magazine manager and the newspaper manager, we'll kick things off with Andy Balch here in just a second. And glad to have you here, friends. The handout's available to you, and within the next couple of hours or so, we'll also send over to you a copy of the recording as well as the slide deck, so you can follow up on all the facts and stats and everything else that's going to be presented today. So very thrilled, and thanks so much to Mirabel Technologies, Andy Balch, and everybody there, Mark McCormick, etc. All those folks for putting on these webinars to keep us growing. And so Andy, a happy new year to you, and why don't you kick things off for everybody?
Hey, yeah, thanks, Ryan. Happy New Year to you. It's always great to see you. Great to see you. Hopefully, we'll be back together on the road again soon at Niche or CRMA or ABP or PMA, etc. So, but yeah, happy to introduce here one of our favorite clients, actually, a longtime user of Magazine Manager, so he knows the product well. But bringing you his sales expertise, second to none. We couldn't be happier to do that for everybody today. So thank you for your business. Thanks for attending. And with that, let's kick off 2021 here. All yours, Ryan.
Exactly. Thanks so much, Andy. Appreciate it very, very much. And friends, it definitely has been one heck of a crazy year in 2020 as it was. And then all of a sudden we get into 2021 and we thought it'd be all different. And it seems to be a lot of the same, doesn't it? But we're going to have some fun together today and give you some thoughtful, new and relevant advice to drive your sales conversations forward with your advertisers, because we still need to make money, right? All right. And so I'm thrilled to be here today. For those of you that don't know me, it's interesting. We've got 600 some odd people on the call today, and I don't recognize a lot of your names. So welcome to the fun, and you're going to find that I'm a pretty irreverent guy. I'm still in the sales business, and so I think that adds to the grit and hopefully a little bit to the charm. So my main company is Brainswell Media. We've been around since 2008. This is my 31st year. Wow, 31st year in the media business. I've had the opportunity to work with over 500 magazine and newspaper titles, like all of you. As of January 1st this year, just toppled 30,000 trained sales reps across the country, 394 hours to be exact, of virtual training in 2020, and have consulted on about $500 million in revenue. And here's the most important part: I still sell media today. So my career, kind of in a snapshot, for those of you that might be curious, I've done nothing but publishing, other than 2 weeks when I was younger selling cell phones. And I said to my boss, this cell phone thing's going nowhere. I'm going back to media. So I've done local radio, local TV, national radio and TV, and have had all kinds of really great opportunities in the media business, like all of us. A little bit more about me, so you know where I'm coming from. My wife is my favorite boss out there, and she owns one of the largest equestrian associations in the United States and puts on large-scale equestrian events. That's not a COVID picture. That would be pre-COVID, but her business has stayed pretty strong all through COVID. By nature of the equestrian business, you can be social distanced unless you want your horses to act up. So her business remained pretty strong, as has mine as well throughout the COVID season. We've got 2 boys, and the red shirt is Ethan, who's off to college to be an electrical engineer. Always told my kids, you know, hey, do your best to be smarter than your old man. And then my other son, Dylan, is currently stationed with the United States Navy as a Riverine over in Bahrain, so just about 100 miles from our friends over in Iran. And so Dylan right now is deployed off the coast of Africa, and we actually received a message from him this morning. He's a gunner's mate, and their primary mission is to seek out pirates and keep pirates away from U.S. ships. So I like to tell people he's got a pretty cool job, but we miss him very much. So big thank you and shout out to everyone, veterans, those that have family members in the military, maybe you're still in the military, first responders, and all the medical personnel taking care of folks throughout this global pandemic. Coming to you today just outside of Augusta, Georgia, a little town called Beach Island, South Carolina, famous for James Brown. This is James Brown's hometown, and so thrilled to be here today. All right, folks, so let's get rocking and let's get started and rock through some great ideas. Let's start out with this very important piece of information to share with all of you. Adrian Barden, professor of philosophy at Wake Forest University, said this: humans are hardwired to dismiss facts that don't fit their viewpoint. Now, I think this applies to everything we're seeing on the news. It applies wherever you sit politically, doesn't matter to me. I think it also applies to when I'm teaching classes like this. You're hardwired as a person to reject things that don't fit your viewpoint or how you've done it in the past. And I want to suggest to you today that in 2021, we are going to have to do things different. If we keep selling in 2021 the way we did in 2019 and even in 2020 without good training, you've got to be open-minded. We're going to have bad circumstances if we don't change how we do some of the things in our sales business. I think that Carl Sagan said it best, and he's a scientist with NASA. It pays to keep an open mind, but not so open that your brains fall out. Just remember that. I think we've got 10 great ideas to get you started. All right, make note of this, and we'll send you a copy of the handout, or you can download it right now in the handouts area. All right, focus point number one. I'm going to give you some new data and stats today that I think it's going to be real helpful as you go out and create conversations with advertisers. Focus point number one, make note. If you don't control the narrative out there on the street, out there with agencies, out there with your advertisers, if you don't control the narrative, guess what? Somebody else is going to control the narrative. Now, I know a lot of you are in the magazine business. We've got some newspaper folks, some radio folks, other media companies on the line today. There was a point in time where somebody said print is dead. Who said it? Send me their name. I'll track them down. Send my son after him. I didn't say it. Did you say it? I didn't say it. So if we don't control the narrative out there, friends, and what is the narrative? The narrative is there has never been a better time in history to advertise. There never has been. And I'm going to prove it to you today. I want you to consider screaming that from the mountaintops. There has never been a better time to advertise in print, especially with what's going on with social media right now. Friends, there's never been a better time. I think this is a better time than when Ben Franklin put the very first ad in the very first newspaper. There's never been a better time. Are you going to control the narrative, or are you going to let your competition control the narrative? What are you going to do? Here's some simple facts and some points that I'd love for you to add to your conversations with advertisers. Just think about this. 61%, according to Edelman, big research company, 61% of the public respect and appreciate when brands spend money to keep them informed. 61% of the public respect and appreciate when brands spend money to keep them informed. Way more than half of people. Important point. Here's what's interesting also from that Edelman study. From a loyalty perspective, what do we do better than anything else? We help brands, businesses, consumer, B2B, doesn't matter where you live. We help drive loyalty, we help drive engagement with their customers, and we help them when it comes to advocacy, whether it's in their industry or it's within just their customer base itself. 75% of people, as it relates to loyalty, 75% of people surveyed with high brand trust say they will buy the brand's product even if it isn't the cheapest. It's the only brand of product they'll buy, and they'll immediately check out a new product or service from that brand to purchase. 75% of people. It pays to advertise. It pays, friends, to control the narrative. All right, from an engagement perspective, all right, you might say Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser. From an engagement perspective, how are you using your advertising, your marketing to better engage, increase engagement? 60% of people with high brand trust say they're comfortable sharing personal information with the brand and they pay attention to the brand's communications. If they have high brand trust, how do you drive high brand trust? A lot of it is about recognition. Sometimes it's about customer service. But think about this. There's never been another time in history where the American citizens or people in general, Canada, whatever, don't trust a lot of the biggest brands that are out there. I'll give you some more stats here in a minute. How about from an advocacy perspective? Advocacy perspective, I'll get it out. 78% of those surveyed with high brand trust say they'll likely share or repost content about the brand. They will recommend the brand to others, and they'll defend the brand against criticism. You know, somebody told me a long time ago, Ryan, you're nobody until you have at least 10 or 20 haters. When someone posts something hateful, it doesn't happen very often. Online, as it relates to me, people will say, oh, you better get on there, get that off LinkedIn. Nah, just wait and watch. I don't have to defend myself. I've been doing it too long. I've got plenty of people. Somebody said, you're never somebody in the world until you have some haters until you've been sued at least a couple of times. What do we do in the marketing business? We help businesses, service companies drive loyalty with their customers. We help drive engagement. We help drive advocacy and so much more, including bringing in new customers. But here is a staggering statistic from our friends over at Pulse Sales Tools. 60% of the public do not know what a company is doing as it relates to products, to services, to offerings, to operations, etc. Why doesn't the public know what a company's doing? Because so many people got on the train of let's cut back our advertising. Friends, one of the things I'd love for you to say as you control your narrative is marketing is not fat. It's not a luxury. It's not something that should be cut. It's a necessity. It's part and parcel to the vital success of every business that is out there. You heard me talk about it early amidst the pandemic, back in March when we all first started talking together with the help of Magazine Manager about brands that marketed through other recessions, economic crises, other global pandemics. Those that continued to market usually emerge on the other side bigger, badder, and better. And we saw it happen again with major national brands. Those that continue to advertise, continue to use the advertising as an advocacy method, etc., advocacy method, etc. Those companies are all now emerging on top in terms of market share, etc. And we'll have more numbers to share with you coming up. It leads us to focus point number 2. All of us on this call, even if you do things on social media, and I'm not a social media hater, but now more than ever before, we are trusted far more than social media. Now, I'm not saying that social media is not a vital part of marketing plans. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying now more than ever before, we need to pick up that phone and we got to start calling people, because the trust as it relates to social media right now is so unbelievably low. 15 hours ago, this information came out. 15 hours ago. That's how current it is from the Search Engine Journal. It's on the screen. 59% of US adults believe the information shared on social platforms is inaccurate. This is a general study done by Search Engine Journal. Now more than ever before, we are trusted far more than almost any other media that's out there. You can argue it all day long if you want to, but what's been the biggest assault on us as magazine and newspaper publishers? Is it digital in general? Well, perhaps, but digital actually shows a great enhancement as it relates to marketing campaigns. Social media, on the other hand, right now being untrusted by almost 60% of those that are surveyed. When you think about that and you combine that with privacy rights and privacy issues documented well in the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, now more than ever before, right now is a great time to advertise. But a lot of the advertisers, they're not going to know what's going on. They don't know where to go with this information. It's incumbent upon us, and we'll talk about it all throughout our conversation today, to really help these advertisers better understand the landscape that's in front of them. Hey, friends, jot this down, okay? Write down for me on a piece of paper in front of you, write the word advisor. Write that down. Write the word advisor on a piece of paper in front of you. That's what we're supposed to be, right? What's the most important part of that word? We are advisors. We've got to guide people to the information that they need. Because if we leave them to their own devices, if we leave them to their own choices, if we lead them in a blind or blank customer needs assessment, guess what, friends? We very often get back the wrong information, which allows them to buy the wrong products and services from us. And it's no wonder that 3 months later, they come back to us and say, I'm not going to renew. I didn't get any ROI, even if they didn't accurately track it. Leads us to point number 3. We are so much more than a one-way street of marketing opportunities. We are so much more than a one-way street of marketing opportunities. As we look to boost sales, a lot of it is about great conversations. This is one that we've got to have. See, most advertisers out there, agencies, marketers, they think of us as a one-way street. When we call on them, when we email them, etc., what they think of us as is a mechanism to bring them new customers. When I want new customers, that's when I call Ryan. When I want new customers in this particular business, that's when I call Melissa. That's when I call Brian, when I want new customers. If I don't want new customers, or when I'm really not in need of new customers, it's not who I reach out to, because they don't think of us as a two-way street, an actual well-run two-way street. We do a lot of things for advertisers that they don't even realize. We're also great at driving loyalty. We're great at driving engagement. We're also great at driving them new customers. But in 2021, friends, if they only see us as a one-way street because of maybe how we communicate, or maybe how we let them think, if we don't bring this up in conversations, in our slide decks, in our proposals, what they're going to do is buy only from us new business acquisition strategies. Think about it. We've talked about it before. 60 to 70%. That's how likely you are, you as a sales rep, to resell somebody that's already bought from you. Now let's flip the script. Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser, you are 60 to 70% more likely to resell, upsell, or re-engage with somebody that's already bought from you before. Why is that? Because COVID has scared us. Done more than that. It's killed us. It's scared us. It's redefined how we engage together, at least for the next couple of years, or till the vaccine's gone, or the next strain comes out, or whatever the circumstance is. The chances of one of your advertisers, follow me, friends, the chances of one of your your advertisers bringing in brand new customers when people don't really know what's happening in the world, they're pretty uncertain, that actually is moderately low compared to their chance of reselling somebody that has bought from them in the past, enhancing loyalty, enhancing engagement, helping with upsells, helping with retention. If you're going to kick things off in 2021 with a bang, you're going to have to reinvent the conversations that you're having. You're going to have to practice them. You're going to have to spell them out. I was just working with a great company this morning, 10 Missions Media, up in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And we did flow charts, script flow charts. Well, how might this conversation go? What might they say? What might our next step be? Kind of come up with a 3-step process. Because we recognized as a group, we're going to have to reinvent, and we're going to have to kind of reset. I'm about 2 days away from getting done with my next sales book, and it's all about resetting your sales game in a post-pandemic world. It's going to require a reset. We can't do the same things that we've always done. We're going to have to do things different, and I'll really explain why as we walk through this. All right, focus point number 4 of 10. The problem that I'm observing out there, and I have the opportunity to coach, to say hundreds would be accurate, of salespeople a year. The problem a lot of times starts with customer needs assessments. Customer needs assessments, the problem is they very often give you the wrong outcome. Your heart is in the right place. You've read Brian Tracy's book, or a Zig Ziglar book, or Grant Cardone, or somebody like that. Mad respect for all of these folks. They're great. They're great. Jill Conrath, all of them, great. They're awesome. But when you think about the customer needs assessment, here's a real problem with it. Most customer needs questions, most CNA questions, what they do is they bring out what the customer wants. Our job as an advisor, as a consultative salesperson, is to really consult with them and guide them to what they need. One of the best things you can do right now, after we get done with this call, is go and look at all the questions that you ask of a customer. What are your goals for 2021? Be careful. Are you identifying what they want, or are you using that want to guide them to what they need? Think about it, friends. If you give an advertiser what they want, you have a happy advertiser for a short period of time. If you give somebody what they actually need and consult them on what they actually need, and I'll give you some details on how to do that in a minute, now you've got a customer for a lifetime. Be careful about your customer needs questions that you're asking. You know, Bill, what keeps you up at night? My dog. Why do you ask? Why do you ask that question? You know, Bill, what's your budget? Well, my budget's $50. Well, does that lead you to a place where you can actually show them what they need? I like to ask questions like this, and we'll get to it more here in just a second. When you granted me this meeting, and thank you for that, was there a problem that you were hoping I could solve? See, that allows me to guide somebody to what they need to do. Ryan, I want lead gen. What I want is lots of leads. Okay, well, that's great. Let's talk about the quality of the leads. Where do you want the leads to come from? What are you going to do with all of these leads? Because everything we offer as media companies can help massage those leads, drive the right leads, help them with further engagement of those leads, etc. So many different ways to handle it. We have not enough time today. This could be one class in and of itself. The death of the customer needs assessment. I don't know that it's dead, but it definitely has to potentially change. Are the questions that you're asking guiding you to understand what they want, which is fine, but it only gets you half the way there? Or are you listening to what they want and actually asking questions that guide them towards what they actually need to do? The problem, most of the time that I observe, is focus point number 5. We get caught up in a CNA that identifies wants and we give them what they want, or instead of what they need, or we sell them the way that they want to be sold. And the problem is most sales, I said that incorrectly. Let me restate, sorry. Most salespeople sell the way that they want to be sold. I talked about this in some pretty vivid detail on a webinar yesterday. So as an example, let's look at the 3 different types of buyers that are out there and how these buyers have changed over the course of 2020. All right, now the FBI, and I teach a class and this is really cool, it's called FBI Profiling Strategies to be a killer sales rep, okay? It's all about personality profiling, what the FBI does to catch criminals. After all, we are just glorified stalkers, all of us as salespeople, right? There's ego-driven people, there's logical people, and there's emotional people. You're one of 3 and you're not a mix. If you don't know who you are and you're like, well, you know, I'm a little of both. Okay, well, you're an emotional person if you can't figure it out. Logical people are logical people. You know who you are. All right, so how do buyer groups break out across the US? In 2019, now follow me, stop checking your email. Follow me for a second. In 2019, 5% of the buyers out there, according to our advertiser study, okay? So we asked our salespeople after the sales call was done, classify them, and they did that for 1 month in 2019. 5% of the people they talked to were ego-driven people. About 35% or so were logical people. Logical people are those that they set emotion aside. They buy media based on facts, stats, and data, okay? Then there was the group of emotional buyers. People, about 65% in 2019 are people that were more emotional in nature. All right, now we just wrapped up the 2020 information, same thing, but the numbers were different. Check it out. In 2020, the number of ego-driven buyers was about the same, but the number of logical people that folks like you and me talk to was actually down 9% to 21%. Up 14% in less than 1 year was the emotional buyer. Now, I think a couple of things have come out of COVID that we can potentially learn from. One is that basically everybody knows how to host a virtual meeting. Your grandma, your mom, everybody. So if anything good has come out of it, we've got an opportunity to connect in a more fluid way on video and things like that, if anything good. Now, what I have observed is the buyers I'm dealing with at the end of 2020 were a lot more emotional, yet most salespeople, like all of us, sell based on data, facts, readership studies, CVC data, you name it. We sell based on logic. If people out there, if our buyers were logical, they'd buy everything that we've got. Instead, what we're dealing with is a lot of people that are highly emotional in their professional life, their personal life, and we should really understand that, I guess, appreciate it and figure out how to work through it. Okay, ask yourself this question because you need to identify who you are. If you're going to kick off sales with a bang in 2021, you're probably going to have to change the way that you sell. The vast majority of you on this call today that I know are logical folks. Okay, what's a logical person? All right, my wife, logical, logical, logical. To her, 2 and 2 is 4. Now, to me, I'm an emotional buyer and I'm an emotional seller. For me, it's like 2 and 2 is 4. Woo! My wife sent me off to buy a different vehicle for our family. Now, we have 2 older kids, so I didn't think it was that big of a deal when I came back with a smaller car. She said, why would you buy that car? You can't even put a box of tissues in the back seat. And I'm like, woo, isn't it cool? And she's like, and the payment's higher. Yeah, but look at how I look, She's like, is this a midlife crisis? What is it? You're one or the other, friends. You're either an ego-driven buyer, you're like, you buy it because, man, it's just who you are. Okay? Probably not, most of you. Logical. You buy and you sell in a logical way, no matter who you're talking to. I'm an emotional buyer, so I'm an emotional seller. My default is to tell stories. That's my default. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. Whatever, you're here, right? You've already paid the price of admission. So when you think about this, if you're a logical buyer, you're probably a logical seller. But what if you're meeting with an emotional person? How do you sell to them? Well, it's pretty easy for me to explain. A lot of it is based upon success stories. That's really what you need to do. And we're going to talk more about that here in a minute when I show you some proposal examples. Think about it, friends. Don't say, well, Ryan, I like the way things feel, but I back that up with logic. If at any point in a conversation of you buying something, okay, if at any point you're really kind of emotional about it, more than likely you're an emotional buyer, which means you're probably an emotional seller. How do you do at mirroring people? Now I go on LinkedIn, that's how I figure out who people are. If I see somebody's LinkedIn profile and it says, I love my job, and think, I love my customers, more than likely that person is emotional. Look at the groups that they're a part of on LinkedIn. Are they a part of groups that are more about hobbies, or are they all about business? When you look at somebody's profile on LinkedIn and it's all lists, digital marketing, design is paramount, customer service centric. Those are all phrases that lead me to think someone is either ego-driven or logical. You can tell a lot from the picture they post. Go and look on social media and see who they are. Maybe don't reference, oh, I saw on Facebook that you recently went to Aruba rocking. You looked great out there on the beach. That's creepy. Don't do that. But when I'm looking on LinkedIn, my number one go-to sales source is I'm trying to figure out who this person is. Then I'm adding those notes into my CRM. One of the things that I love about using Magazine Manager is the ability for me to quickly go back and recall who somebody is. As I learn things about people, I make notes about those people. Because if I'm going to stalk them effectively, I'm joking, tongue-in-cheek humor, people. If I'm going to stalk them effectively, I've got to really know their habits, who they are, how they operate, things along those lines. So when you think about it, maybe though you're an emotional buyer, you're an emotional seller. Well, like me, I have to fight myself to include facts, data, and stats in my presentations. Make sure you're not a mismatch. It's critical to having a great boost in sales in 2021. All right, quick coffee break. I got to remind myself to breathe and to drink. Thank you to Magazine Manager and the Newspaper Manager for supporting this webinar today. In case you were wondering, I don't do anything for free, and you shouldn't either. So thank you to Andy, to Mark, to everybody, Jacob, everybody, the cast and crew over there at Mirabel Technologies. Thank you so much, friends. Okay, number 6. I really want you to consider using your CRM to create lists to drive your sales focus. One of the things that I've noticed more than ever before in 2020, and I'm very fortunate my kids are older, but I've got my one son doing online college, which he says is like, this is not all that great, but just rock forward, man. Okay, you're here. Is that we've got to create lists because we're so unfocused. Some of us are back to work. That's awesome. Be safe about that. Back to work, cool. But the rest of us, we're still working from home. Some people thrive at home, some don't. Now, here's the thing about lists that I think is important. From a time management perspective, Of the time given to a workday, according to timesy.com, of the time given to a workday, 80% is spent doing tasks with little to no value. And only 20% of your time is spent doing something vividly important. What I love about the lists is 50% of to-do lists are items that are completed within that day, some within an hour, if you actually work those lists to your advantage. See, the beautiful thing about lists is that if you come off the list because of a distraction, you can go and pick back up where it is that you left off. Now, some of you haven't played around with the advanced search that's been out. I guess we're talking about 8 months or so, I guess, inside of Magazine Manager, maybe a little bit longer than that. How do you find it for those of you that are Magazine Manager folks here today? So you go to your activity dashboard, you're going to go under search, advanced search. And here's how I build my lists. So I have several lists that I work to help me stay focused. You'll see right here, I've got a top 20 prospect list that I've chosen. I've got a special projects list. And what I do is I create contact groups and I tag these accounts accordingly. I've got my people that are in progress. I've got people that are on hold. I've got people specifically for an event that I sell called the Kinder event that I sell. So what I do is two things. It's two steps. I time block to work the list, and then I work the list. So let's talk about prospects for a second. So what I'm going to do is when I first started this particular search up in the left-hand corner up here, there was say like 2,900 contacts. I need to go through and clean some things out. Don't be an account hoarder. Nothing worse than an account hoarder. Okay, hoarding accounts is not good for you, your clients, or the company. So stop that before we have a show that's on TV called Salespeople That Are Account Hoarders. You know who you are. I worked on this account, Ryan, for 7 years and finally got him to close. Okay, record yourself saying that and you will realize how silly it sounds, okay? My top 20 prospect list. I've got it in the CRM, but friends, I've got it written out on a little whiteboard right here that I keep right next to me. Why? Because I'm, borderline, ADD. I've got to have this stuff in front of me at all times so I can stay focused, All right, my in progress people, who are they? People I've met with, people that I need to follow up on, and that kind of thing. Now, because Magazine Manager being the sponsor today, we'll hope you use that CRM. We got folks that use other CRMs. However it is that you keep all your data together, you want to work lists. Here's one of the things. Here you go, free of charge to you. One of the first things that I would do if we were coaching together is tell me about your sales processes. Tell me what it is that you do every day. And when I work through it, I find out most of the time you're not working lists. What you're doing is you're using your noggin. You're using your head. Little advice for you, okay? If you're over the age of 45, okay? Out there, all right? If you're not there yet, you'll get there and you'll know what I'm talking about. You need to make sure that you're actually keeping up with all the work that you actually need to do. Think about this, friends. If you remember the details of every conversation you had yesterday, I would tell you you probably didn't have enough conversations. Because if you do remember all those details, why are you selling advertising? Why are you not working for NASA? What are you doing? I say it all the time. If ad sales was easy, everybody would be doing it. And they're not, because we're either crazy, which is possible, or we found careers that really will feed our families for a lifetime. But part of the nature of this, friends, is to recognize where our weaknesses lie. If we're going to be bigger, better, and better in 2021, one of the best things that we can do as salespeople is begin to create and work lists. You're going to find at the end of the day, when you work these lists effectively, like for example, on my prospecting list, I'm going to call, I'm going to email, I'm going to wait 3 days. As a part of my process, when I'm leaving a voicemail, I never introduce myself first. I never ask somebody to call me back. Why, as a part of your process, are you asking a customer that you don't know to call you back? Are they really going to call you back? Come on. What's the percentage of times that you leave a voicemail for people that know you that they call you back? Much less people that don't. My voicemail strategy in working my list is really straightforward. Hey, Bob, I sent you an email with the subject line such and such. You don't need to call me back. If you could give me a quick reply to that email, I would greatly appreciate it. Oh, sorry, by the way, Ryan Dorn here over at Bobblehead Magazine, whatever your circumstance is. Working the list, changing your process, asking about a follow-up every 3 days, every 3 business days. Those are the kind of things that lists help you do. Now, if you're a crazy organized person, God bless you, and that's awesome. I would say that I run across people like you very rarely. You are a rare bird. Most of the time when I meet a superstar salesperson, and let's say we go out to lunch or something, and I go to get in their car, it looks like a homeless person lives in that car. That's how disorganized most superstars are. If you think you're good, I think you'd be really great. I don't know a superstar sales rep that doesn't use a CRM. You know, I don't know. They're probably out there. I just don't know who they are. Number 7. And by the way, friends, we've got right now about 70 some questions in the queue. So we'll do our best to get, I'm trying to answer them as we go along here, but I might need to send you a few emails afterwards. So thank you for your questions. We'll do our best to work them in. All right, focus point number 7. Instant gratification syndrome is real. Now, maybe it's not in Wikipedia, but I tell you it's real. If you've been in the ad sales business very long, you know it's real. Instant gratification syndrome can only be cured by smarter conversations with your advertisers. It's the only way to cure it. Controlling the narrative, our first point we talked about today, then you've got to have smarter conversations with these folks. Most of them can barely run their own business, much less make a great marketing decision. The worst are agencies. And the agencies are just the worst. You would think that they would know. Who's with me on that? Just talking about agencies raises my blood pressure. Where's my Bayer aspirin? Okay, I mean, seriously. When you think about this, friends, you've got to be able to have smarter conversations. 2 approaches I want to share with you today. The first approach would be to walk through any business, what the typical sales funnel looks like, and point out where are their customers sitting in that funnel. Now, I'm going to give you another example here in just a second in case you've seen this one. All right, Steve Richard from Vorsight Consulting. He says in any given piece or place in the sales funnel, you can have a 1 to 4% differential. All right, typical sales funnel, typical businesses, consumer and B2B. You've got this group of people out there, about 56%. So Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser, at any given time, our research tells us that about 56% of your customers, our readers, are in awareness mode. They're not ready to buy anything, but yet they're banking information for use at a later time. People typically don't put up a wall and say no information because that's not the way that our brains are designed. We're always absorbing information. Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser, at any given time, your customer, our reader, about 40% of them are looking to do something, but they're not ready to buy, but they are showing some level of interest, about 40%. Only about 3 to 5% of your customers, our readers, are really ready to make some type of decision in some way, shape, or form. And that's kind of how it breaks out. Now let's work the sales funnel backwards. And I'm talking to you like I would talk to one of my customers. People won't make a decision if they haven't shown interest and done some research. People won't be interested in things they're not aware of. Now we know that most advertisers would like to skip the sales funnel, run an ad for say $5,000 and with us, and then they're going to get $500,000 in return. I ran an ad with you. I'd expected 5,000 leads. Well, I want to front that conversation and get in front of that conversation because Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser, every customer has to take a journey before they buy your product or service. They just do. You can either show them the journey via the sales funnel, as we've shown it here. And by the way, you'll notice every slide's got a source on it. Either I've done the research or somebody else has provided it. And almost all the research that I'll show is the latest, or the oldest any of it's going to be, is late 2019 is the oldest. 2020 was not great for research because it was hard to get data back, but we got some of it. Okay, so because we know 56% of your customers, our readers, are in awareness mode, this is why you would want to do webinars, for example. Webinars are great for awareness. Print ads, great for awareness, as an example. In the interest stage, we got about 40% of our folks, your customers, my readers, are doing some level of research. So that's why it might be good. White papers might be good. or some type of virtual event or something along those lines if you're in the local or consumer space. Now, what's interesting is there's something down here in the bottom that a lot of people ignore. There's actually one step here, and this is when people actually buy. Okay, there is a step down here at the bottom of the sales funnel where people buy. I can't control that. I can't control when they buy or what they buy, but I can influence the decision. The decision is about who is that person, your customer. Who are they going to choose, Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser? Are they going to choose you, or are they going to choose your competitor over here, Mr. X? Who are they going to choose? Okay, it's all about a buyer's journey. All right, let's show another version of the buyer's journey. Okay, so for example, let me grab my little handy dandy pen. If you're checking your email, come back to us here. All right, so this is an advertiser that's going to run some type of awareness ad with us. So I'm speaking to the customer now. I'm not talking to you as a salesperson. I'm talking to the customer. Let's just say that her name is Julie. Julie, at any given time that you run an ad with us, our readers are going to see that ad and they're going to do one of two things. Their brain is either going to say, no, I don't have a need right now for that. Or they're going to say, yes, I've got some type of need. I'm ready to do some research. Now, follow me, friends. This, when someone's brain says no, this, friends, is called the no loop. Okay, this is called the no loop. You will never get credit for the no loop unless you ask for it. When's the last time you asked? Well, that ad didn't work. Well, we might have caught everybody at a time when their brain was in the no loop. 56% of people right now that are your readers, that are your customers, our readers, are in the no loop. It doesn't mean your ad's not working. It just means their brain has not moved them, or their boss has not moved them, or their spouse has not moved them to the yes mode. The only way you're going to get credit for the no loop is if you asked for credit for the no loop. Do you ask? I'll say, Julie, a lot of times customers like you, when they run an ad with us, when they don't see sparkles and magic happen, they think, oh my gosh, that advertising didn't work. It did work. It did, because more than half of the people seeing that ad at any given time, unless they're going to run some ram-dazzle offer of some crazy kind, most people are going to say, I don't have a need right now, and they bank that information for later. That's what humans do, and that's okay. Now, at some given time, the brain is going to say, yes, I have some type of need, and then the buyer's journey continues. First thing someone's going to do is they're going to be socially influenced. Now, we heard about it earlier, trust on social media, almost 60% of people are not trusting social. Now, I'm a shareholder of Facebook, not big, thank goodness. It's been one of the worst investments that's out there, but people are socially influenced, social media and social in general. After somebody is socially influenced, then they're going to personally consider that product or service. Someone asked a question, is this only consumer? B2B or consumer? Before you buy a new piece of software in a B2B space, you're going to go through the buyer's journey. Before you buy a new truck for a fleet, you're going to go through a buyer's journey. It's pretty rare that somebody wakes up in the morning and goes, you know what, I'm going to buy 15 trucks today. They've been thinking about it. They're going to personally consider it. Then everybody doubts themselves before they make a big purchase. Then they're going to make some level of purchase. However, you can do the sales funnel, or you can do a buyer's journey that's written out like this. This is where we come into play. We come into play right here with social campaigns, print campaigns. This might be virtual events. Fingers crossed. Hopefully we'll be back to some live events. I know over at Niche, I do a lot of work with Niche. Looks like, October, back to live events to get everybody together again. E-newsletters. You might have programmatic down here at the bottom. But remember something now, the vast majority of people, I forget what it is, 70 some odd percent, I don't have the number in front of me, are visual learners. So what I do when I'm doing virtual presentations, you see how this is like a mess on the screen right now, right? Well, this is exactly how I sell people. I get out my little pen here and I mark things up and what do you think? And does this make sense? And, how can we better align? And I need to get some credit for the no loop, Julie, or, whatever the circumstance is. Now, you don't have to have a fancy Casey Kasem microphone and a lit background like I have all this because I do this hours and hours and hours every day. But you want to look good. You want to look good. If you don't know how to look good, I did a video over on YouTube, how not to be a webcam zombie. Go Google it over on YouTube and check it out. But this is what we've got to do. We've got to create better, bigger, better, and smarter conversations with these advertisers. Otherwise, we're not going to get ahead in 2021. What are you going to do to outsell your competition, especially if you're number 2 or number 3 in your category? Get better. Get better at selling. Get some coaching. Get more training. You know, if the product's not going to change, then you got to change. Just get bigger, better, and better. Remember now, you've got 74% of people, up 14%, are emotional. So you might say, well, Ryan, isn't this a logical conversation here? No, this is a very emotional conversation. It's just backed by some logic. I get further faster with this slide or with this slide than almost anything else that I do. What about your media kit? How do I get into who I am without this conversation being had? Think about it. Do you really need to show the history of your company in a slide deck? They're not going to give you a meeting. You don't need, if they don't know who you are, they're not going to give you a meeting so you can pepper them and interrogate them with a discovery meeting. Think about it, friends. You're better than that. Number 8 of 10. 60% of people make purchases because of FOMO, the fear of missing out. 60%. Well, Ryan, I don't know that I trust that stat. Oh, killing me. Say it's 30%. It's a lot. It's a lot of people. 3 in 10 or 6 in 10. It's a lot. So when you think about this, one of the fastest ways to get somebody on board with FOMO is to show that they're the only one not advertising. I think that John Lawrence and the crew up at Virginia Living Magazine, they've really done it right with this slide. It's great, in my opinion. If you're up there selling for Virginia Living Magazine, that's how Virginia Living, that's how we'd say it here in the South, right? Virginia Living Magazine. Look at all these advertisers. Any of you in this call can do this. It should be one of the first slides in your deck. I want somebody that's looking at this to go, oh, dang, I'm the only one not advertising. There's this thought out there because most advertisers consider marketing to be fat, not muscle. They don't think that marketing is skeletal. They think it's extra. It's a luxury. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity. I want people to go, oh, wow. In their brain, they're not going to say this aloud because they'll never admit that they're wrong. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm the only one that's not advertising. That's what I want them to think. A good question. These probably would be people that have advertised in the last year or so. I think it's great. I think it's just a great slide to have. And when you represent a great magazine like John Lawrence and this team have up there, I think it's a great one. I think it's a great slide. All of you can do something like this. Here's how it works in a sales conversation. May I briefly share with you 3 examples or whatever, a couple of examples briefly of other businesses like yours that have been very successful with us. And I've never had an advertiser say, no, I don't want to know what other people are doing. Success breeds success. People want to be like those that are successful. That's why you see all the quote unquote gurus online when they're trying to sell you sales training, they line up their 3 Porsches in front of their big house, because don't you want to be like me, By the way, anytime someone calls you a guru, you got to watch out for that. Watch out for the gurus out there. I'd rather work with an expert than a guru. That's why Tony Robbins, the name of his documentary is I'm Not Your Guru. If you're going to get people over and help them understand FOMO, you've really got to show them what FOMO looks like. How about this stat? Come on. 48% of buyers have spent money they didn't have to keep up with others. 48%. FOMO is everything. That's why I'm so big on success stories, testimonials. Those are implied referrals, case studies. How do you get them? Write them for your advertisers, get them to approve them. Give somebody a discount to get great digital data on the e-newsletters you're doing, the sponsored content you're doing, the OTT you're doing, or whatever the circumstance is. 2 more points. Focus point number 9. In every market, B2B consumer where you live, there is a reality of marketing in that community, that industry, that sector, whatever you want to call it. There's a reality. It truly is not about the advertiser's budget. Now, if you're new to sales and media or you're old to sales and media, I'm telling you right now, stop asking people what their budget is. Stop. that forces you to give them a media solution based on their irrational reality of the market that's in front of them. Very rarely are they right with their budget. I have never had an advertiser give me a budget and I went, oh, you know what? That's too much. You don't need to spend that much. It's almost always a circumstance where they need to be spending 50 grand and they want to spend 5. The question that I ask is straightforward. You guys have heard this, that have heard me speak before for the last 15 years. When you think about marketing in our community or in our industry against your competitors, do you kind of want to dip your toe in the water, kind of have a basic presence? Or do you want to be competitive? Or do you just want to dominate this sector, this category, this industry, this town, whatever the circumstance is? I recently just got an email from a guy, his name is Michael, and Michael worked for the Home Mag in Raleigh, Michael and Beverly, the Home Mag in Raleigh-Durham area up in North Carolina. And he said, Ryan, this is the question I use, and I used it 3 different times. It advanced the conversation with 3 different deals in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks. They were like 50 grand up. And Michael said in an email to me yesterday, this is the basis of how the conversation went to get more money. As a matter of fact, one gentleman that he was talking to, when he asked this question, the guy said, well, I am dominant. And then Michael was able to explain to them that he's really not, and what he could do. And the guy said, great. And he bought a spread. He bought like a cover 3, bought all kinds of different stuff based upon that question. There's a reality to marketing. So you drive FOMO by showing that they need to be advertising. They're the only one that's not. Don't ask them their budget. Instead, guide them to what that budget needs to look like, because you're going to have a 70% higher conversion rate when you recommend products. 70% higher conversion rate when you recommend products. So when you think about it, I want to lay those things out. I want to lay out, what does it look like to be dominant? What does it look like to be competitive? What does it look like to put your toe in the water? Now, there's no pricing here because I don't want to get you pricey yet. I'll show that in a second. But when you think about it, what does it look like? Hey, to be competitive in your category. So for example, I did this example for real estate in a consumer space, okay? To be competitive, you're going to need to do monthly full page ads with us, a monthly white paper lead gen program of some kind, be in our monthly e-newsletter, do at least a little bit of online display. Don't call them banner ads. Nobody calls them banner ads. Online display ads. They still sell, by the way, especially in B2B. You have to do a bi-monthly webinar. You should do some events with us. That's what it looked like to be competitive. At this point, probably going to say, that sounds good to me. What's that going to cost? And then you're able to rework your proposal. I'm going to show you in a second to give them that information on the spot. I don't leave meetings to create a proposal. Very rarely do I have a discovery meeting with somebody and learn something. I mean, really think about it. When's the last time you went on a meeting with a client and you're like, whoa, I had no idea they were going to say that. If you've been doing this for a while, you pretty much know what it is that they're going to need. You pretty much know. And you have a 70% higher conversion rate when you recommend products. So I like to use a sheet, something like this. This needs a designer, needs Jim Nissen to spruce this up. It's kind of boring. Looks like an old sales dude, put it together. But last but not least is focus point number 10. We want to restructure those proposal templates that I'm talking about to enhance FOMO and to really drive what those recommendations look like. So this sheet, I'm going to show them to kind of get the wheels going, to get the wheels turning. And then I'm going to get more into, based on what they said to me in my needs assessment, I'm going to create a conversation and guide them towards what it might potentially look like. It would look something like this. So I'm going to have my options along the left. And by the way, I don't call these packages anymore. Nobody really does that much. Call it a program, call it a plan. A lot of people are tired of hearing the word package. So BRB Magazine, to be dominant, there's full page. E-newsletters, 35,000. Opt-in subscribers, talk about it. The online display, 100,000 impressions, talk about it. Social media posts, we'll do them daily, talk about it. Lead gen program, 300 leads a month, talk about it. Mobile advertising, 95,000 a month, talk about it. Site retargeting, what is it? Talk about it. See, what I'm doing is I'm not doing this capabilities deck where I'm walking through and telling them, well, here's our capabilities. Welcome to our Chinese buffet. Do you want, the Kung Pao pork? Do you want the sesame chicken? Do you want the mushu rice? What do you want? Beef and broccoli? What is it that you want? Instead, I'm being an advisor. I'm guiding them. Hey, somebody like you that has goals like you've told me would do a plan that's kind of right here in the middle. Let's work with this number here and let's tweak on this and let's play with this and let's make this work for you because others have done it before and they've been really successful with it. Well, Ryan, I want to give them exactly what they want. I am giving them what they want and more. This is the ultimate consultative sale. The ultimate consultative sale. When I guide people towards what they need to do, because when I show them what they need to do, they're almost always going to be more successful. And you're going to get a copy of all this, by the way, in a couple hours here. All right, of the proposals we studied in 2020, 65% that earned business had 3 pricing options, just like I showed you. Option number 1 was the most expensive typically. The average page count on those proposals was 7 pages or less. 45% had way less text than those that lost business. Of the proposals we evaluated, a lot of them had less text on specs and deadlines, way more pictures. 55% of those that won business featured testimonials or case studies. I teach a whole class on how to create amazing proposals based upon this data. Just remember, friends, and we studied 1,200 pages in 2020. 79% of our test users always scanned any new page. Only 16% actually read what it is that we put on the page. All right, so where do we grow from here? I think the important piece is to recognize that you're gonna have to do something different. If you keep doing the same things over and over again, you expect a different result, you're classically redefining insanity, and it just doesn't make sense, friends. There's no reason. Insanity does not need a new definition. Pick something from the webinar today and do something with it. Put it into action, and then don't stop learning. If you're a big Facebooker, get over to Ryan Dorn Live. Every single week, we're putting 6 or 8 tips up there. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Hey, if nothing else today from this webinar, let's connect on LinkedIn. I'll send you all this kind of stuff. You'll always know what's going on. If you're a tweeter, over on Twitter, follow me on Twitter. But the biggest thing, for me is just recognize that if you're going to be successful, you're going to have to do something different in 2021. And that's why I think it's so awesome and so great that the magazine manager, the newspaper manager, Mirable Technologies has really brought us all together today. All right, friends. And remember, if ad sales was easy, everybody be doing it, and they're not. So we're either crazy or we found careers, friends, that will feed our families for a lifetime. Hey, if you're not a user of Magazine Manager on the call today, reach out to Andy, the cast and crew over there, and get on a demo. You'll have a chance to meet some great folks like Jacob and Mark and everybody else over there. We thank you so much. Thanks to Rachel and everybody for putting all this stuff together today. And Andy, thanks for kicking things off. All right, friends, God bless you. Get out there and sell something. If I could be of help, reach out to me, Ryan at ryandorn.com. All right, friends, take care, and we'll see you out on the street. Bye-bye, everybody.